Hello, Phantom Shipmates. I'm getting ready to leave the very scenic and beautiful island of Bermuda. I've been on a mooring ball for 4 or 5 days right in front of this wreck here, which actually was good because it gave me some protection. We had a tropical storm blow through here while I was here, and some other boats had some damage. So I'll be casting off lines here very quickly and getting the sails up. Suitcases full of memories and a very lightened wallet. This place is dreadfully expensive, but beautiful. So let's get underway here. And in the background you might be able to see Bermuda saying goodbye, heading north for 950 miles. They speak French there. There's 2 little French islands off the coast of Newfoundland called Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, and that's the intended destination. Now, I'm not too rigid on that. I can go to Halifax, I can go to St. John's, you know. So anywhere along that coast of Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. But it'd be kind of nice to go to France again. We'll see how this turns out. And as I leave Bermuda behind me over the shoulder there, a big shout out to YouTube superstar Sophie from Polar Seal, whom I crossed very briefly but did not get a chance to really chat with. So fair winds to them, and if you haven't checked out their channel, it's worth a quick look. Thank you. Several people have made the comment that the solar panels appear very flimsy or very unstable. I can tell you that they're on there firmly. They move around a little bit, but while I was in St. George's Harbor in Bermuda, there was a tropical storm that passed, and they survived gusts well in excess of 50 knots. So they're quite strong. The other question I get is, where can you buy them as a kit? And the answer is, I don't think you can. You can't buy a kit. You have to buy either carbon fiber or fiberglass poles on their own, and then build the backing, and you have to do it yourself. At least I did. So I'm not aware of anybody that sells a kit. I told you that my boat was heavily overloaded with fuel and water and food, far more than I would ever need on this trip, but just because I wanted to be as autonomous as reasonably possible. So I also wanted to just give you a quick show of something else I went a bit over the top here. Here's my toolbox with tap and die sets, and there's a medium-sized rivet gun in there as well. And there's 3 DeWalt tools, a multi-tool, a grinder, a cutter, and a drill. And of course I have all the fittings and fixtures to go with those. And in these plastic boxes there is every kind of nut and bolt and fitting, marine fitting that you could possibly think of, or that I could possibly think of. O-rings are in there to satisfy whatever I might need in terms of spare parts. Here's my toolkit, of course, one of those fold-out things there. It's actually quite practical. And then there's all of the Volvo Penta stuff. The fuel filters, I've got a belt in there, and the turbine for the impeller. And what I didn't dig out, just because it's too hard to show, was I have this huge bag of electrical wiring, electrical connectors, a soldering gun, antenna. So I've got just a whole massive thing of electrics as well. And of course, a complete sail repair kit, the thing for the palm, and the stitching material, and patches, and I have several formulas of fiberglass and epoxy fillers as well, in case something goes terribly wrong. So that gives me some confidence that I can be moderately autonomous in case something breaks. It is approaching sundown in another hour or so. The wind has been 15 to 22 knots all day long. It's been going very well in about 1.5 meters seas. But the forecast for tonight and through all day tomorrow and even the next day is that the wind is going to increase to 25 to 30 knots, gusts to 35. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a second reef in the mainsail, because I don't want to do it in the middle of the night. And I'm going to change from the Genoa to the staysail, just so everything is calm and relaxed and peaceful. So I'm going to try to film that. I don't know if you'll see anything. What's special about it is unique, is different. I'm going to try to do the reef heading downwind, the second reef, because I did that many times in earlier segments, but I didn't film it. So let me try to film this. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'll set this up before I hook up the camera, is move the chariot, the traveler, move it up and bring the sail in to near the center line. So I'm going to do that, set the camera up, and then we'll film putting in a second reef heading downwind. Okay, here we go. So I pull the traveler in. Now what I'm going to do is just pull on the second sheet. Just pull as tight as I can and ease the mainsail down, and then go up and hook up the reef to the horn. Putting in the second reef while headed downwind. Now I did that in 15 knots of apparent wind. I can do it up to about 20 knots. When you get to 20 knots, the forces are just too strong. So then I just turn back up in the wind to do the classic one. Well, now there's just a little bit of tidying up, but that's it. It's done. Okay, now I've got the staysail out as well. So that when the wind of 25 to 30 knots, 25, 35 knots arrives tonight and tomorrow morning, I'm already done. I'll be reading a book. I wanted to show this to you though. In an earlier video I showed you that the reef point, because I'm only going to ever use the staysail when it's reefed. So otherwise I'll just be on the full Jenny. The tack was down at the bottom here. Hola. And what happened was every wave that came across smashed into the staysail. So I just put in a strop. Now is it too long, or I don't know, we'll see. There's a trade-off. Now the waves will pass clearly, but the force on the top of the sail is higher. So it's going to cause the boat to heel a little more. So there's got to be a happy medium in there. That's perhaps a little too high, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. So I'm ready for some near gale conditions. I'm looking at 23 knots of apparent wind and just under 7 knots speed over ground. So like 30 knots of total wind. And these seas are 2.5 meter seas. 2.5 and sometimes 3 meter seas. So am I ever glad that I put the staysail up last night before dark, and also put the second reef in the mainsail, because I definitely would not have liked to have done that in the middle of the night. "22 knots, 8 knots of speed over ground." The NKE Autopilot system has 3 primary modes of navigation. One is the compass heading. Just pick that compass heading, it'll do whatever it can to stay on that compass heading. The second is apparent wind. That's the relative wind, for those of you who know, the relative wind as the sailboat moves through the air. And the third mode is vent réel, true wind. True wind. So when do you use apparent wind and when do you use true wind? On a sailboat, you can't measure. There's no tool or no instrument that measures true wind, except when you're at the pontoon, because as soon as you start moving, there's relative wind as well. So it's a very advanced computer algorithm that calculates that. And here today, I'm in 2 meter seas, 2 to 3 meter seas, and they pick me up and go surfing. And when you're surfing, the apparent wind changes a lot. It picks you up, zoom, and the apparent wind is no longer stable. So that's when you use true wind. And so on a day like this, when I'm going downwind and surfing on the waves a bit here we go, then it's using true wind. And then when I'm on a beam reach or heading into the wind, then I switch it to apparent wind. There are lots and lots of adjustments you can make, dampening and smoothing the effect, turning the gain up and down so that the response is proportional to the error that the boat is seeing from what you've told it to do. I have used almost none of those, because there's also an option, just choose automatic. For all of the different settings that you can do, I just choose automatic because I didn't have time to make the polars and all that. So I just said, computer, do your thing. The one thing I do play with a bit is the gain. So right now I'm on gain 4. You don't want it to be zigzagging and wildly out of control, but you don't also want the autopilot to be zigzagging, overcorrecting. So I play with the gain a little bit on that. So that's how the NKE Autopilot system works. I don't do, I'm using 15% of its capability. I'm embarrassed about that, but I just didn't have time to get more knowledgeable about how to use it. They say that this passage from Bermuda to Saint-Pierre and Miquelon has been all fun and games. I've had 2.5 meter seas, 3 meter seas for 48 hours now. And the forecast makes it look like it's going to be that way for another 24 hours. That just makes it very difficult to move around and do anything, So the best thing to do is sleep, and I've done a lot of that. So people always ask me, what's your sleep pattern? And of course, when you're a solo sailor, there is no sleep pattern. You just sleep whenever you can. And take advantage of that with an AIS that's along. And in the early morning rain. I'm a long way from home. I'll just be on my way. Let's go put in that jibe I've been putting off because of the rain. There's 2 things I want to share with you as I arrived about 2/3 of the way through my passage from Bermuda to Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. Well, as I said, I'm about 2/3 of the way from Bermuda to these little islands off the coast of Newfoundland called Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, which belong to France. So two things I wanted to mention to you. Here's where I am today. I just marked that down. See this red line here? That says ice June and July. And today is the 12th of June. So obviously before coming, I checked the Canadian authorities put out a daily ice report, and that ice report reported there was nothing here. You have to go up on the northeast coast of Newfoundland before you find any ice right now. So from icing, I'm okay. So the second concern I have concerning my arrival is all of that red that you see there. We're looking at 25 knots, and you know, there's a mini depression there. It's really not very big at all, but I guess I need to ask Mother Nature, do you have to let it linger? So obviously that's an unknown coastline to me, and an unknown marina in an unknown country. So I will approach the coast of probably 25-30 miles off the coast and heave to for about 15 to 18 hours. In fact, you're not going to believe it, but those solar panels, it's now 3:15 in the afternoon, those solar panels have worked brilliantly even in this, and the batteries are fully charged. And I need to readjust them now to catch the last 3 or 4 hours. I know this doesn't look very much on the camera because the camera always flattens the seas, but this has been grueling for the last 15 hours, and I just need to, I'm going to relax a bit. So when it gets dark, I'll heave to right before, and as it gets light very, very early, like 4 o'clock in the morning, I'll then, after a good night's rest and maybe hopefully get something to eat. I've had an apple and some cookies all day today. I couldn't even boil water because the boat is rocking and rolling between 15 and 40 degrees with the pitching and rolling. So I'll heave to and grab a bite to eat, and then get some sleep, and then at 4 o'clock in the morning I'll continue on. Yeah, even the wind has picked up just a little bit. 29 knots now, almost 30 knots. Still moving quite rapidly, but let's slow things down. I just wanted to show you what it looks and sounds like inside the boat after the heave to. You saw outside there was 2-meter seas and 28-30 knots of wind. Inside, rolling with the waves, but no screaming in the rigging, no horrible noises, and so you can you can relax, you can cook, you can do things that you need to do. So that's the hove to position. The nautical term is parking at sea. Le jour de gloire est arrivé. Landfall in a couple of hours. This is the entrance to Saint-Pierre et Miquelon, France, 7 miles from Canada. After a very cold and very wet night. Il me fallut bien du talent pour être vieux sans être adulte.